A very blessed independence to you, Barbados. Our very special guest is commanding officer within the Barbados Regiment. She's also the National Independence Parade commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Julia DaBreo. Lieutenant Colonel DaBreo, welcome to this very special one-on-one.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. The first question that I want to ask, why the interest in the Barbados Defense Force? Where did your journey begin?
I will say one word: admiration. I remember growing up and living in the area of the South Coast area, specifically St. Lawrence. And as a young person on mornings, evenings, sometimes I would see this truck, this military truck passing along the roadway with these men and women in military uniform. And how they interacted with each other, that left a positive impression on me from a young age. And then growing up, going to the different independence parades with my family, that as well was an experience. And because of that, in part, I remembered being at home after leaving school. And the 17th of August 2024 will be 30 years service. And 30 years service is not 30 days. It shows that a love for the organization. And that love was established merely because of admiration for a group of men and women that I never knew.
And I'm sure mentorship played a tremendous part in your career as well. Other officers that you would have looked up to since joining some 30 plus years ago.
Of course, both men and women actually, in terms of my development, both as a soldier, because I was in the enlisted first, and then my development as an officer. What is expected of you as an officer? You respect yourself, you respect others. Don't do things that you wouldn't expect persons to see, or looking at the standards within the force, because the force does have standards. Wearing this uniform sends a statement, and you have to be mindful in terms of what you do, what you say, and that in itself is one of the major factors where the mentoring was concerned. You have to be sure in terms of who you are, where you are, and what you represent, because you're not representing yourself. You are representing yourself. You are representing an organization. You are representing the government of Barbados. So in terms of that mentorship, those were the essence of what made me who I am today. I would say as a soldier and as a professional officer.
Yes. Living up to those words of service beyond duty and a life of excellence.
Yes.
You're the fourth female commanding officer within the Barbados Regiment.
Yes.
Why was it so important for you to take up this particular post at such a time?
One of the factors I will say is because of what I can bring to the fore. The other females in themselves have made their own accomplishments. One of the things that I want to make clear is that where the Barbados Defense Force is concerned and where women is concerned, that inclusiveness, we have reached milestones. And for me as an officer to reach this level within the Barbados Defense Force as a commanding officer, I believe that I have something to give. I believe that I can give back to the nation of Barbados through the Barbados Defense Force. The senior persons within the organization as well, the Chief of Staff, Brigadier Carlos Lovell, the government of Barbados, they see some kind of potential in me in terms of what I can achieve, in terms of what I can achieve through their mentorship, through their guidance, through their mandate, for the betterment actually of Barbados.
I'm sure growing up on the south coast of Barbados, you would have mentioned looking on with admiration at these men and women in uniform, in national duty, did you always see yourself, or did you tell yourself that, one day I'm going to join this organization and I'm going to excel? You ever saw yourself, reaching heights of success within BDF?
I'm going to be quite honest. No, not in a million years. The admiration was there, but I never saw myself within the organization. But I am living that reality, and I have no regrets, none whatsoever in my life thus far. Yes.
And what does it mean for you to be this pillar of excellence for other young women across Barbados within military life who may be looking on with admiration at you as well?
It demonstrates that regardless of whether or not you are female, you are a male, once you have the competency to get the job done, you get the job done. So for me, the Barbados Events Force have shown that it realizes the integration, the necessity for having an inclusive organization, integrating both men and women in different areas. So I compliment the Barbados Events Force for that. Yes, there would have been challenges in terms of the development of the force, but we have seen how the force has evolved to be more inclusive, and it has gone beyond barriers in terms of restrictions to having females in different areas. There is no restriction as it relates to where females can be posted in the Barbados Defense Force. I am of the view that we as females restrict ourselves. You have the talent, you have the ability, then go for it in terms of what you want to achieve within the force. And that is what I did. I had the opportunities, the force gave me the opportunities, and I am here where I am today.
Yeah. Everything in life comes with challenges.
Yes.
So remaining on the topic of women within military life, what were some of the challenges that you've encountered, and how were you able to surmount those challenges in particular?
For me, I have not had any challenges within the force as a female. This is my experience, Lieutenant Colonel Julia DaBreo's experience. Some other females may say otherwise, but for me, what I have seen is that the force is open to listening to what are the barriers that you may have as a female, or even what you may have as a male. So for me, there have been little barriers. I have had opportunities to be selected for courses that I was the first female. I have had the opportunity to be selected for posts, being the first female in those posts. But I would say it isn't about being the first female. Similar to the other ladies, for example, I would like to mention that the Barbados Defense Force is celebrating its 45th anniversary. And one of the things that activities that was held was a lecture series. And the last of those lecture series had a lecture themed Women in Combat, specifically focusing on women in Barbados Defense Force. And those ladies demonstrated to me that the training, the experience that they have had, have propelled the organization into how it is now being encompassing of addressing the challenges that other females may have, apart from what they would have had in their experience in the force.
Can you speak to some of those military training courses that you would have undertaken and how that has transformed your life within the force?
There are 3 specific courses to which I wish to highlight. A basic officers course. That course is held in Trinidad and Tobago. There are a number of different basic officers courses that are held not only regionally but internationally. But I want to focus on this particular course because, number one, that basic officer course prepares you for your role as an officer, for your role within the context of your career within the Barbados Defense Force. The second course, which I wish to highlight, again within the Caribbean region, the Junior Command and Staff course, and this is held in Jamaica under the auspices of the Jamaica Defense Force. And this looks at what we would term middle management officers at the operational level, further development for you as an officer, and finally, where I am at my level, the senior officers course. And I have had the opportunity again to complete training at the Inter-American Defense College, which is unique in that it has an accredited master's program, Inter-American Defense and Security, which focuses on Latin America and the Caribbean and the state of affairs within this region. That course in itself looks more at the strategic level, where it prepares you for where I am at now within the force. So you have had those leapfrog experience, that leapfrog training and education that prepares you to, or should I say, for my role as it is as the commanding officer of the Barbados Defense Force.
This year, the Barbados Defense Force is celebrating its 45th anniversary. How are you commemorating that important milestone?
Of significance is the theme to which the Barbados Defense Force looked at with regards to its 45th anniversary. Proven excellence, shaping a promising future. And that in itself speaks to how the Barbados Defense Force sees itself in terms of the mandate at the government level, sees itself in terms of what is expected of it within the context of the national interest. And our focus, of course, is on the youth and development of the youth. And for us within the force, there were a number of activities geared towards that, where we would have had, I did mention the lecture series. We also had a number of community projects, and along with other activities. But one of the activities culminated with our anniversary parade. And that was well attended by a diaspora of the Barbadian public, not only within the context of the diplomats, but also within the context of the general public, where the soldiers and their family came out. So that is one of the main features for us, that proven excellence, but also focusing on a promising future, taking into context the families as well that were there, and how we can influence what we have already achieved and how we can support other achievement at the national level.
Is it safe to say that we can, look up to the Barbados Defense Force as a pillar of excellence where regional military operations is concerned?
Of course, of course. The Barbados Defense Force Chief of Staff, again, Brigadier Carlos Lovell, when he took over the mantle as Chief of Staff, he brought all of his officers together, inclusive of the civilians that work in the Barbados Defense Force. And he informed of his command philosophy. And that philosophy is living what our core values are. Of note, in terms of those core values, we set the standards, we don't follow. So for us within the force, we see ourselves as trailblazers based on those core values, which in itself relates to discipline, integrity, respect for those around us, selfless service, commitment to duty, loyalty, courage, honesty. We have to live those core values. And essentially, that is what makes us or set us from other entities. Because for me, the military and in itself, the Barbados Defense Force is a unique organization. We are the trendsetters. We set the example for others to follow.
A major part of leadership and military leadership is, being able to execute in terms of transformation of the lives of others and having them live their purpose. How are you ensuring to keep camaraderie alive within the teams or units that you're responsible for, while also keeping them inspired and focused on the vision ahead?
One of the primary things that you have to ensure is that you have a purpose. And that purpose is what is mandated by government. Of note, our Defense Act informs that paragraph 5, of that Defense Act. Our primary duty is defense of Barbados and other duties. Taking that into consideration and knowing what our purpose is, we also have to ensure that we look at the quality of life as well as the welfare of the officers of the enlisted rank. So for me, as the commanding officer of the Barbados Defense Force, for the senior persons within the force, we need to ensure that we not only focus on undertaking as well as completing whatever tasks that we are mandated to accomplish, but also focusing on ensuring that the soldier is ready. He has the necessary skills, training, education, equipment, but also taking into consideration that the soldier has a private life and focusing on the quality of life for him within his work environment as well as his welfare. Once you have those and you balance those, you will have a soldier that will be willing to work for you, willing to do whatever is necessary. And we sign a dotted line. That dotted line informs. And that was reminded to me recently at professional development training that was conducted. Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Ford, retired, reminded me that it is God, country, organization, self. So in the context of those 4 essential factors, as a soldier, you know that where you sign that dotted line, it isn't about you, but it is about what you are doing at the national level for your country, for your community. And that is striking the balance.
God, country, organization, and
self. Yes.
All of these elements of service.
Yes.
Before oneself.
Yes.
What systems do you have in place regarding the mental health of soldiers within your organization and catering for protection of one's mental health?
I am proud to say that we have an established and a well-organized structure. The Florence Gittins Medical Facility, which is the Barbados Defense Force medical facility, which caters to the needs of the soldier, not only looks at the soldier in terms of his medical general, but also focuses on the mental aspect. That facility works along with specialist areas. We have padres who look at the religious and spiritual need of the soldier. We have a social services system which looks at what I had previously mentioned, the welfare, the quality of life of the soldier. We also have specialist persons who come in, private specialists who give of their time at sessions, a psychologist who looks at the needs, that mental health need of the soldier. So we have a well-rounded structure, in my view, that caters to the need of the soldier. And it is utilized. It is very much utilized by the soldiers, and they are aware of those mechanisms in place. We also provide that opportunity as well for the soldier, where you are not comfortable with individuals going to them, speaking to them, that we can put things in place, mechanisms in place for you to be referred to external organizations that can also help you in whatever challenges, whatever concerns that you may have. And that is special for us, focusing on not only the mental health, but also what is necessary to have that soldier comfortable in that he accomplishes whatever task that is mandated to him.
With the Barbados Defense Force acknowledged as a pillar of excellence in terms of regional security systems, how do you see the BDF playing its role in terms of combating the crime fight as well and working alongside other law enforcement agencies?
What is realized is that for, I would say, most militaries, our mandate has gone beyond defense of border and security. We are more involved now in civil power in terms of humanitarian aid, in terms of response, in terms of reconstruction. So our traditional role, it is there, yes, but also we have put ourselves to be adaptive to what are the security challenges within the context of our national environment, as well as within the context of assisting our regional partners. And it should be noted that security not only speaks to situations where you have mentioned, but security also speaks to environmental security, where the government also looks primarily at the situation with climate change. Security speaks to food security. It speaks to a number of elements where, for example, the Organization of American States has a concept of multidimensional security. So security doesn't only encompass focusing on transnational organized crime, but it also focuses on other areas of national interests that the Barbados Defense Force is mandated to assist. The role for us is to ensure that we have the competencies and that our personnel is ready to assist civil power, that we are ready to engage with civil power, that we are ready to guide civil power if need be.
Mm-hmm. So we have COP26 happening now. Can you speak to how important it would be for the Barbados Defense Force to provide support where climate change is concerned?
For us in the Barbados Defense Force, it's more of a supporting role. For example, where the Department of Emergency Management is concerned, and you should realize that for right now where climate change is concerned, the features as it relates to the weather systems and the impact that they have been having not only on Barbados but within the context of the region itself and internationally, of course, but within the context of the national as well as our regional support, we see the necessity in relation to humanitarian, and I did mention it, humanitarian aid assistance with reconstruction. So for us, that supporting mechanism is based on the skills. It is based on the knowledge within the force that we can help guide as well as support any areas of concern, any areas that requires response, so to speak, as relates to your answer in relation to climate change.
Mm-hmm. For any young persons who may be watching on Col DaBreo, what would you say to them in terms of getting involved where the Barbados Defense Force is concerned? Sometimes we as young people, we hear all of these stories about, national military operations, but what advice or encouragement would you give them in terms of getting involved?
What I would say is that people join the Barbados Defense Force for varying reasons, but essential and important is to know that the training, the skills, the knowledge that is gained is of value. It presents life skills for you, the individual, but it must be something that you want and not something that is forced upon you. Because if you come into a system, you are not comfortable with it, that you are forced within the system, you're going to be miserable. And you're going to make those around you miserable as well. So for me, it is about wanting something and wanting it in that your love for whatever it is that you choose to do, whether it means being within the Barbados Defense Force, in the regular force. You also have the option of the reserves, where you have your own job. If it is that you have your own business, if it is that you are employed elsewhere. So you have those two options. You have love for that, the environment. So you have love for the environment if you want to see yourself as a soldier, as an officer, where that is your profession. Or if it is that you want that, but still you want to ensure that you have your private life, your ability to have something there apart from being in the force. So for me, for individuals, young people who want to come into the system, ensure this is what you want and not what someone has mandated to you or try to force upon you, the individual.
What are those non-negotiable qualities that you look for in young people as they show interest in joining the force?
The potential, the wanting, of course, to be here within the organization, seeing that you can make a difference regardless of how old you are, regardless of where you come from, your background. Knowing that, being self-confident in knowing that, that is what I will look for in terms of someone who wishes to join the force, whether it be the regular force or part-time.
Colonel DaBreo, at this time we must pause for a short commercial break, but we'll be right back with more one-on-one.
I am Station Sergeant Janine Julian of the Barbados Police Service and also an old scholar of the Alexander School. We traverse Barbados to keep you safe. We've also observed that there's been a lot of littering around our island, and we wish that we can keep Barbados clean. A clean country starts with me. A clean country starts with you.
Keep it clean, keep it green.
Barbadians, we invite you to get involved and play your part as we clean and green Barbados. Come into your community with media launches, bulk waste collection exercises, community engagement sessions, and giveaways. Get on board. Let's keep Barbados clean and green.
Beautiful, beautiful Barbados.
Welcome back to this very special one-on-one. We are sitting with Commanding Officer of the Barbados Regiment, Colonel Julia DaBreo. Colonel DaBreo, we want to touch on some of your coping mechanisms operating in what is clearly a male-dominated field.
Okay, for me, important is recognizing your capabilities. And when I speak about capabilities, is recognizing your strengths, recognizing your weaknesses, acknowledging those. And also important is the support mechanism that you have in place that can assist you with whatever challenges, whether it be emotional, whether it be focused on problem solving. That support mechanism is very important, not only within the context of the work environment, but also within the context of your personal life. So those two are essential. Again, also what is essential is knowing what you can control, knowing what you can influence, and knowing what you cannot control. Those are essential for me, and those are what have assisted me in terms of being able to cope within a male-dominated work environment.
How do you find that work-life balance as a senior officer with what we would call a critical appointment?
As I said, it's about balance and how you balance your work environment. Again, it's about that support that you have in place, within the context of your home, within the context of your work environment in itself. It also looks at how you structure your routine. You may have a plan. Sometimes you may have a perfect plan in terms of how you are going to come into the office, sit down, and this is how my work is going to entail. However, that is the perfect plan. What I have experienced is that having some kind of guide, and that is what I have in place. I have a structure in terms of when I come to work, I have time for myself in terms of what I want to do, whether it be focus on reading through documents, whether it be just relaxing, whether it be just going on the yard and talking to the soldiers themselves. Then I have time in terms of this is mandated in terms of what I am required to do when I am in the office, in terms of getting on with the job. Also, I have to take into consideration my health in terms of eating correct. So those are some of the essential factors that assist an individual where it relates to being in a critical position, that in terms of balancing how you approach the work and how you care for yourself. And you made mention as relates to mental health. So I too have to look after my mental health because I have the life of soldiers in terms of the decisions that I may have to make concerning their future within the force in itself. So I have to ensure that I put things in place that I am able to develop who I am as an individual and how I do things as an individual. So for me, it is two parts in terms of balancing that.
What is that emphasis like for soldiers generally in terms of prioritizing their physical health, in terms of what they eat, what they consume? In Barbados, we have a situation where 80% of our premature deaths are as a result of non-communicable diseases. So what's that emphasis like within the Barbados Regiment?
You should we don't take for granted that within the force is built on what? The military is built on discipline. The military is built on fitness. Those are two essential factors to being within the force. So for a soldier, he knows that he has to look after his health. He has to look at in terms of what he puts into his system, whether it be food, whether it be drugs. We have a no tolerance policy where certain things are concerned. So the soldier knows in himself that there are things that he needs to be mindful of within the context of the force as well. We have what is known as standard operating procedures. We have our mental health facility, and I did mention before that we also have our medical facility, and those assist soldiers through programs, through sensitization, through structured physical as well as professional development programs that not only looks at your competency, but also it focuses on making you ready mentally, making you ready physically for whatever work that is required of you as a soldier.
Is there a need for more young females to get involved within the Barbados Regiment?
Of course, there's a need for females in any organization, especially where the organization is a male-dominated organization. I did say that you cannot force something on someone. It has to be what you want as an individual, but there is room for females within the force, and we are currently recruiting. And we have females who have come to the fore in terms of being at Paragon right now with their male counterparts. So there is always room for both males and females. I'm not being impartial.
Awesome. What are your expectations within this particular post for the Barbados Regiment?
My expectation is living by the core values that have been set by the force, and which I would have mentioned those 8 core values. That is the expectation that I have of myself as the commanding officer of the Barbados Regiment. That is the expectation that I have of the persons who are subordinate to me. That is the expectation that I have of the force. And as I said before, the Chief of Staff made that known as part of his command philosophy. Living those core values is essential for our success within the force.
And is there a strategic vision that you can speak to as well for maybe the next 5 or 10 years?
The strategic vision must be in line with that at the national level. For the Chief of Staff, he has informed that the strategic vision is for an agile, for a versatile force. And for us to be that way, we must be competent in whatever we do. We must have that competency, whether it be in terms of training, whether it be in terms of education, because we are not responding internally. We are responding to the mandates that are set for us. So that strategic vision focuses, as I said before, on having an agile and a versatile force as informed by the Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defense Force.
This year you are operating as parade commander for national independence. What can we expect this year from the Independence Parade?
You can expect a spectacular parade, starting with the arrival of Her Excellency, the Most Honorable Dame Sandra Mason, where the parade commander, of course me, will report to her and inform her of the state of the parade in terms of the number of officers and other ranks who are on parade, informing her of the organizations that are on parade, both the armed forces and the unarmed forces. So that is the first focus where that parade is concerned. Other features will entail, of course, our March Past, where we pay respect to her as well as to the nation of Barbados. And that March Past is in slow and quick time, not only with the armed forces, but also with the unarmed forces that will be on parade. Another focus or another feature of the parade is that of the display. This year, there will be a display by the Barbados Cadet Corps, who, by the way, are celebrating 120 years. I'm not going to indicate what they are going to be displayed. That is a surprise. So apart from that, one of the other major feature of the parade is the recognition of certain people, certain Barbadians who have contributed significantly to the development of Barbados. And it is good to see that the government of Barbados focuses on the youth. So we have the leadership badges, which will be presented to a number of young people. We have the National Awards ceremony, which will focus on recognizing those individuals in Barbados who have contributed significantly. We also have focus as relates to Shirley Chisholm, who, for one, is in the history books. She is a Barbadian who has had an impact internationally. The first female, black female of West Indian descent to earn election in the United States Congress. So those are some of the main features. And lastly, the salute to Barbados. We must have that in terms of honoring those individuals past and present with that salute. So it is definitely a look forward to.
So what does preparation for the National Independence Parade involve?
For me, it is twofold. At the individual level, and then focusing on the individuals who will be on parade. Understanding what my role, what my responsibility as the parade commander is, that is the first thing that I must be able to understand with respect to my preparation. And for me, as the commanding officer, I am responsible for the entire conduct of the parade, and that is no easy feat. You have to have individuals there that will guide me, because I don't know everything and I would not purport to know everything. So having that guided force in terms of what my role, what my responsibility is, and additionally to that is looking at those individuals that are on parade, ensuring that they too are preparing themselves, whether mentally and physically, for the parade in itself.
Why is a national independence parade so important?
You are honoring those that have gone before you. We have come a long way in terms of our history. I have free education. As a Black person, I am able to go where I want. So having that and honoring those individuals is one of the essential features of any country, and Barbados is no exception. And Barbados is showing that we are honoring our forefathers as well as those that are present.
With the island as, the Caribbean's newest republic, are you satisfied with the interest by our youth in national events?
Of course. You are seeing more and more young people being involved in different organizational activities, being involved in national things that are of interest. We did mention climate change. We have forums as relates to the war on drugs, so to speak. We have community projects that young people have and are becoming interested in. For us, as a military force, speaking to the Barbados Defense Force, that is, as well as other communities out there, the stakeholders, what we must do is ensure that we engage these young people. What we must do as an entity is that we encourage them that regardless of wherever you live, you have your part to play in the development of Barbados, because you are the future. We are going to go, but you will be the future of Barbados.
How would you encourage other young persons to get involved in national events in terms of understanding the history of Barbados and the newer elements of our history, for example, becoming a republic, and the significance of those milestones?
I think for us in Barbados, it is all about sensitization, where we as adults must encourage the youth. It starts in the home, it starts in the school, it starts in the church, it starts in the community, where we allow the young people to come to us to express themselves. We provide the information for them. We encourage them. So for me, that is what is essential.
On the topic of pride and patriotism and the role that you play here with the Barbados Regiment is concerned, how would you describe your leadership style?
I do not have any one particular leadership style. It depends on the situation. It depends on the circumstance. Because for instance, sometimes I would need to be authoritative in terms of the decisions that I will make. Sometimes I may need to be laissez-faire or democratic. So for me, it isn't having any one particular style, but being able to adapt to the situation that I am faced with within the context of the decisions that I have to make.
Do you find that the authoritarian type leadership style is sometimes most effective in getting the job done?
It is sometimes, but you must be able to understand the context of what you are dealing with as relates to that authoritative approach, not only within the military, but within the context of your everyday life. Yes, there is a need for it, but it depends on, as I said before, the situation, the circumstance, because it can be, I would say, a turn off for some individuals in terms of how you approach them, how you speak to those individuals. Some individuals may be amenable to it. Then for some individuals, they may not. So you as a leader, you as an individual, where you are dealing with other persons, your style, your use of that authoritative style must take into consideration what you are faced with.
And how do you remain inspired despite all of the challenges, keeping your eyes focused on the vision ahead, where the Barbados Regiment is concerned?
Having a purpose, knowing what I am here for. And I'm not here for myself. I am here to serve the Barbados Defense Force. I am here to serve the public of Barbados.
What would you say is your approach towards operational readiness within the regiment?
For me, understanding the weaknesses of those around me, the capabilities that they have. So it is about having an understanding of the needs of those individuals. Also at the strategic level, it is understanding the needs and capabilities at the national level, because those go hand in hand in terms of our operational readiness and being competent to deal with whatever that is mandated for us by higher level. So knowing my weaknesses and developing and addressing those weaknesses, looking at what are the best practices and models, and learning from those best practices and models, as well as taking into consideration that there is a necessity to be interdependent. You cannot work in silos. You have to be able to know that you need to engage others, whether it be internal, whether it be external in terms of civil power, whether it be external in terms of the grassroots within the community. In order for us to be operational ready, we must understand the environment and the state of the environment in order for us to understand how it is that we need to respond.
How do you seek to incorporate societal and cultural differences that soldiers may have, and having them somewhat, become more cohesive as a unit despite these differences?
I will say that for us in the Barbados Defense Force, we are part of the community. So we are already involved. We are filters. What makes us different is that the force is unique in terms of those core values, and living by those core values. That is what sets us apart, and that is what allows us to be established in terms of the cultural nuances and the filters in society that can have a positive, that can have the potential for negative impact where we are concerned as a force.
And what are some of those core values? I know you've been mentioning it, oftentimes, but what are those core values?
I did mention those core values. There are 8 core values: discipline, integrity, selfless service, commitment to duty, courage, loyalty, honesty, respect. Those are the core values, and they will never change, because with every military, there are professional ethos, and these ethos is what makes you or what can break you.
What are some of your most cherished moments within military life?
Okay, there are several, but I'm going to focus on one. In 2018, I remember sitting in my office, and I received a call from the then Chief of Staff summoning me to his office. I'm like, what have I done? Or have I done something? I don't think I have done anything wrong. And when I went to his office, I was told that I was being considered as one of 2 officers for posting as aide-de-camp to the Governor General of Barbados. That was one of the most memorable moments for me, because that highlighted that as an individual, that as an officer, that the higher command sees that I can make a difference, sees that I can be in a position that I take into consideration what that post entails. And that for me has been one of the highlights of my life. And that has been one area in my development as an officer that has assisted me in terms of how I approach things, because Her Excellency Dame Sandra Mason is a lady to whom, and the President of Barbados current, because we are now a republic, to whom I will always admire and respect.
How would you say you've transformed from operating as aide-de-camp to a commanding officer here within the regiment?
As I said before, in terms of the interaction with civil power, you get to better understand how things operate external to the Barbados Defense Force, why people do things the way they do. So that for me in itself is one of the major features that I have seen within the context of me, where I was aide-de-camp to the Governor General, that is, and then transitioning back into the force. That benefited me in my approach as an officer and now as the commanding officer of the Barbados Regiment.
Are you satisfied with the existing systems here within the regiment?
Of course. We have evolved. I made mention earlier in the interview as it relates to inclusion, where men and women are concerned. We have evolved in terms of integrating that inclusivity, looking at the milestones that have been reached where women are concerned, their experiences, their participation. In terms of the organization, our Chief of Staff, Brigadier Carlos Lovell, and what his command philosophy is, having an agile, having a versatile force. In terms of what the organization is doing internally for its individual, in terms of what the organization is doing as mandated, we are supporting the growth, the development of Barbados. So for me, that is what the force is all about.
Thank you so very much for your time, Colonel DaBreo, and we're certainly wishing you the best from our team here at One on One for this Independence Day parade.
And also I wish to thank you for having an engaging conversation. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, and thank you. We've come to the end of this very special one-on-one with Commanding Officer here at the Barbados Regiment, Lieutenant Colonel Julia DaBreo. On behalf of my producer and I'm Miss Ron Robinson.